Hey everybody, really excited to chat with you guys today. I'm with Mel, also known as
Hi.
Village Crazy Lady on X, and yeah, we're really excited to get started learning, seeing a little, talking a little bit about the MAGA movement on the right and everything else that's been going on in the world. So Mel, excited to
Yeah.
chat with you today.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. I say you guys, but it's just you, Ollie, which is great. We talked on the phone before. We did a lot of we talked a bunch when the JFK files came out, and
Yeah.
then we haven't really talked in the last couple months. So I was really excited when you messaged me yesterday.
No,
Um,
same. So the world's been going crazy as of yesterday because of the New York mayor race. I'm actually really curious to get your thoughts on everything.
Well, first off, this morning, I was really wishing that there was a way I could capitalize on these moronic, kind of like Fox News Republican talking points where everybody thinks that New York City is going to go communist.
Yeah.
And like I wish there was like some kind of betting market that I could take all of these people's money because this is so stupid, and I really want to capitalize on that, but there's not. So I thought about offering like 200 to 1 odds. They can cash at me their bet, and in a year I'll pay out if New York City is a
Well,
communist
this is what
hellhole.
I'm worried about is because obviously I'm very anti-Zionist, but at the same time I'm not the most liberal and I'm worried it's going to end up looking kind of like SF soon, which is
You think
like
so?
well, because I was reading at
Yeah.
I was looking at some of his policies. One of the thing he wants is like safe injection sites, which to me
Yeah.
is like, and then I mean, if you look back in 2020, the amount of tweets he wrote about defunding the police, it just to me,
Yeah.
it's very much so like what SF was pushing. And now looking at SF, I mean, you have people shitting in the streets. It's kind of
Yeah, but the thing is that San Francisco, I mean, almost all of it comes down to the city council, and they have an extremely liberal city council, which New York City just doesn't really have.
oh, okay, I didn't know
I,
that.
yeah, I mean, the city council, I used to follow a lot of them out of San Francisco, and they are insane. Like, they are legitimately insane. Half of the city council of San Francisco is just like the stuff nightmares are made of. And then in New York City, it's significantly more practical. Yeah, they have some lefty policies, but the thing is that De Blasio was pretty liberal. I mean, he was pretty liberal, and if it didn't get bad under him, I just don't really see this guy. How do you say it? Mamdani?
Yeah, Mamdani.
Mamdani? Mamdani. I don't see him having that big of an effect. I think it's more of like a psyop, to be quite honest with you. Into getting, you're gonna have some more liberal policies, but what you're gonna see, I think, is just an explosion of government ran or government funds. Government paying for healthcare or for childcare, expansion of that, and expansion of a lot of which is stuff that city council really likes. And of course, they get money from that from the federal or for that from the federal government. It's a way to leverage it, and I think bankrupting the city is more on the table than having a bunch of druggies strung out everywhere. We'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah, no, definitely, I could see that.
Yeah.
What I do think is interesting actually is I feel like the one good thing, the precedent that it kind of set, especially in the I think the largest Jewish population aside from Tel
Mm-hmm.
Aviv, is that you don't need to be like kissing Israel's rear end and just like being a
Right.
bootlicker like Andrew was to be elected. I feel like
Yeah.
that's a good precedent on both the left and the right because it kind of actually gives me more hope for people like Thomas Massey too. I don't know if you felt a little bit
Mm-hmm.
felt that way or
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. I thought it was really obscene the way that Israel kept coming up, right? I think it really kind of showcased how little that they had, or in my opinion, it kind of showcased really how little this guy's politics or policies differed from the other candidates, that they're just constantly focusing on Israel. That could
I
have just been a campaign decision. I don't know. But yeah, Jews are like 12% of New York City's population. I was looking at the demographics
I didn't
today.
even realize it was that large. That's pretty crazy.
Oh yeah, it's huge. And uh, and they're also like disproportionately represented as far as like voter turnout. Their rates are significantly higher. I was trying to find the actual stats on that for 2021's because mayoral races always have a lower turnout. In 2021, the New York City eligible voter turnout was like 23%. So
Yeah,
that's pretty abysmal.
I wanted to
Um,
find that video. Here it is. I'm gonna share it of the NYC mayor race when they were asked the stupid question about
yeah,
Israel.
it's so crazy. I mean, obviously, New York City, finance capital of the world. It is important that they have, at least a foreign policy that they can communicate. I would think.
No, no, sorry, go ahead. I just accidentally spoke
No,
it.
but the idea that should be like a central part of the campaign is just so ridiculous, right? Like, why does this keep coming up? And every single interview I saw of him, it was brought up at least one time, and I'm like, this
Well,
is
yeah, I think it is because it is. I mean, probably because it is such a large Jewish population. They're trying to win that vote. I mean, just proportionately, Jewish people are heavily, heavily Zionist. I think it's like 80% or so.
Oh, I think it's higher than that. I
Yeah,
think, but I think he's like a quote unquote liberal Zionist, right? It's not like he's like, oh, I don't think that I think Israel should be disbanded and all the Jews sent back wherever. He's like, no, I want a two-state solution, and I think that they should have to respect
he
human
said, "I want
rights.
equal rights in Israel," and that pissed
Right,
people off. That's what's
which is like so funny.
um,
This
no,
is so nuts.
it's crazy. It's crazy. That's like I can't see that happening anywhere else. And then there was this part too.
The first foreign visit by a mayor of New York is always considered significant. Where would you go first? Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Mr. Cuomo.
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
I said
I
that
just want to go to where they start fighting.
As
a Jewish, not
as a Jewish state?
Notice.
as a state with equal rights.
He won't,
Okay.
he
Not
won't
as a
say it
Jewish
has
state.
a right to exist as a Jewish state. Be very
And
clear
his
on
answer
that.
was no, he won't visit Israel.
Freaking crazy. It's crazy.
I
It's
know.
actually just like wild, and the way that they were fighting about it towards the end, I think honestly that video made Andrew Cuomo look so bad because it's like, dude,
Yeah.
you're such a bootlicker.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I'll be honest with you. How much you want to bet he goes to Israel within?
You think so? You think he will, or
Yeah.
he won't?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, nothing gave me more joy, honestly, than just looking at going through Bill Ackman's X account and just seeing him
Oh,
freak
I know.
out.
Which is so crazy because the Bill Ackman, if this were not an issue, right, that guy would have been right up Ackman's alley because Ackman sees opportunity in big government. He sees spending, he sees dollar signs. So, there's, I don't know. I'm just, the whole thing is a little ridiculous to me. And like last night I tweeted out, will this ever end, this race? Like, I just want it to go away because I feel like everyone's not really being honest. And again, I'm still upset that Andrew Cuomo was even ran. I think Andrew Cuomo should be in federal prison for the way that he handled the COVID. There are so many scandals. No one's ever gone to jail for any of that stuff, right? And just the fact that they ran Andrew Cuomo, especially considering what he was responsible for, just the shuttering of New York City. New York City suffered disproportionately in every metric, as far as rise in income inequality just since COVID. It already had a pretty astronomical one, but just since COVID. The shuttering of small businesses, the shuttering of hotels, of the tourism industry. They shut down Broadway for what? Over a year and a half? I mean, they just devastated these industries in New York City. And that was Andrew Cuomo who did that. And the idea that less than 5 years later he could have this total comeback is just, I don't know. For me, I think that would just be a really hard pill to swallow as a Democrat, even. So,
Yeah, I agree. No, absolutely. And It's been interesting. Yeah, I guess I like so even so separate for well, yeah, Bill Ackman. I mean, he's always been a super liberal Democrat. The only
Yeah.
reason he switched was after October 7th
Yeah.
because of everything going on in Israel. So he's obviously an Israel firster. And
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
lot of people on the right that are very Israel first too. It's been interesting after October 7th seeing the split on the right. So
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited to get your thoughts on that because
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen this before. You've. I feel like
No.
you've been. What are your thoughts on that?
No, this has never happened. It is unprecedented, and there is a very, very clear fissure forming on the right, and it is mostly along the age demographics, right? So you've got under 50 essentially. That's the most drastic poll I saw had 18 to 34, and then 35 to 49, right? And for Republicans, and just the shift in Republican viewpoints on Israel. In both the 18 to 34 and the 35 to 49, there is now a negative perception of Israel among Republicans.
Wait, really? I
So,
didn't see this new poll.
yeah, that's let me see. Let me pull it up. There, is it pulled up? You can see. Let me zoom in on it.
Yeah.
So you can see negative views of Israel have risen. So from 2022 to 2025 among Republican leaning overall, they rose from
Wait,
27.
that's huge.
Yeah, 27% to 37%, right? But you see, like with the boomers, it pretty much, there was a 4-point rise. But with the young people that lean Republican, it was a 15-point rise. I mean, that's massive, right? I think that was the biggest jump. Overall, I guess Dems had a 16-point jump. But yeah, what's interesting is that it's actually kind of reverse. Younger Democrats always disliked Israel, and the older Democrats. So there wasn't, as big of a
Even
change
they had
there,
a pretty crazy jump. That's
yeah,
wild.
yeah,
So
it's huge. But yeah, I think that this is the number that scares them the most, right?
yeah, because once they lose the right base, it's
Right.
always the laws always take a lot longer to change versus public perception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
you've got about 3-4 cycles, but I think you're going to see. I will not be surprised if in 2026 we see people explicitly running as
anti-Israel.
anti-Israel. I don't think they're going to be anti. People don't want to come off as like anti-Jew, right? That's
Of course.
why the marketing has been so successful thus far. Is if you can just conflate Zionism, Israel with Jews, and I don't know, a lot of that conflation is warranted because, like we said, there's 95% of Jews support the state of Israel,
And the ones that do support it love conflating it.
Yeah. And so when you got like 90% of Jews conflating it and saying that they support, I mean, again, I don't know. I mean, that's certainly it's a touchy subject for a lot of people. But so I don't think you're going to see people like flat out come out and say like, I don't support Israel's right to exist, But what they're on the right, you're definitely going to see people coming out and saying no more entanglements. We need to be done. We need to be done with this, right? And that's why something that they're pushing that we really have to monitor right now is that the MOU between the U.S. and Israel is up for renewal. Do you know what that is? That's the
I do know what that
memorandum of
is, and it's like they
right.
want to extend it this time for like 25 years or something,
25
right?
years.
This
Yes.
is what's the MOU stand for? Something related to the military equipment.
It's the
Memorandum of
understanding.
action or understanding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
it's pretty nuts.
So who does is that something that the Congress has to vote on again, or is that something the president has to? Okay.
Yeah, so it's usually worked out. The president proposes the budget to the Congress. The Congress, there's some lobbying that goes on there, but usually it's hammered out initially in the think tanks. So it was a few months ago. It was after Trump took office. The Heritage Foundation, which is responsible for Project Esther, I'm sure your audience will know. They probably at least heard of Project Esther. That's kind of the censorship program. So the Heritage Foundation is responsible for Project Esther. Well, the Heritage Foundation also had this new plan for the MOU, and it was a 25-year. But what it actually did was it increased spending up until, I believe it was 2032, and then it started to dial it back over until it eventually got to whatever year 2020, 25 years is, and then we had cut them off, right? It was actually an extremely reasonable, actually, I don't think it's reasonable at all. I would cut them off tomorrow. I think that's the reasonable position is, don't charge them any kind of fines or fees for all the money that's been wasted thus far. That's a reasonable position to me, but cut them off tomorrow. But regardless, it should have been accepted by most reasonable people in saying, and yet when the proposal came out, so they were supposed to have the ambassador from Israel over to the Heritage Foundation's headquarters in DC. They had a big meeting set up for it. And then the proposal leaked the night before, and the ambassador canceled.
Oh, Mike Huckabee?
No, it was the Israeli ambassador to the
okay,
US.
on the other side.
So,
Okay, gotcha.
Oh yeah.
What do you think it's gonna actually go through the way it's currently set up? I mean,
No.
you don't think so?
No. I think what we have to watch for is they're going to sneak it in at the very last minute after the 2026 elections.
Yeah.
They're not going to talk about it at all. It's going to get snuck into the NDAA during the lame duck session after the 2026 election. So that's where that's really where we get fleeced every time. That's where they really stick it to us. So
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason why I feel like Israel's been pushing for this Iran war. Like, it's like it wants it so bad. It's always wanted it, but also it's trying to make it happen as soon as possible because I feel like they are starting to be concerned with how U.S. sentiment is changing. Do you feel like that's also part of the reason for this like push? So like they want to get all of the existential crises out of the way while they still can use the U.S.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the time is right, obviously, for Israel as far as just from a military standpoint. You've got Hezbollah is just pretty much rendered not effective whatsoever. They're pretty weak right now. I still don't know what happened to their massive rocket storage, or
They relied on Syria a lot as a land corridor to supply weapons.
Okay.
So they basically flanked Syria or flanked Hezbollah.
Didn't they have something like a 30,000, 50,000 missile or rocket stockpile?
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
I know that they're like Israel attacked some stockpiles months ago. I don't know the extent of what they have left, but I assume that right now that they would be basically trying to weaken the Iron Dome while Iran is striking missiles, which I haven't been seeing much of. And then that's one of the main reasons why Israel took over Mount Hermon in Syria, because they wanted to just basically flank them and make sure that they're as isolated as possible.
Right. Yeah. So Hezbollah's down. Obviously, Hamas is still in the fight. I mean, we saw what they did yesterday with the helicopter ambush. I mean,
yeah,
it's obviously I want the war to end. Obviously, I don't want anyone to die, even though I think that a lot of those soldiers should be put on trial for war crimes. But it's a little bit impressive that you've got these guys who are working with nothing. I mean, they are just repurposing old, unexploded ammunitions and guns that they're finding on the, left and abandoned in Gaza, and they have been effective in fighting back. I mean, it's I don't what's the word? Ingenuity,
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and necessity is the mother of invention, I suppose. So, but yeah, Hezbollah, Hamas is kind of so, and then of course Syria is just worthless now. So it's kind of a clear shot. So they want to take advantage of that. And then of course you have Bibi, who is doing everything he can to avoid prosecution, to avoid the day after the war ends, right? And I think that he will do anything he has to stop that day from coming.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of a little bit of a time time crunch for them. You've got a Republican Senate, Republican House, Republican president. But that's only good up until really October, November at the max, because then everybody goes into campaign mode, and we really do have war season in this country, and during an election year is not war season. That's everybody, you have to have peace because you can't have these massive spending bills that you have to push through to fund these wars. So, which is another reason why you see Trump pushing for the massive spending right now, because he knows he's not going to be able to get it next year when Republicans are going to try to run on, fiscal responsibility or whatever.
Yeah. What do you feel like is gonna on when it comes to Israel and when it just comes to MAGA in general? How do you feel like things are? What do you feel like the future holds? How do you feel like trends are going to continue? Do you feel like the split on the right is going to get wider? Anti-Israel sentiment is going to get wider, and then what do you think is going to happen in the Middle East in that respect as well?
I think that you're going to see. I don't think it's necessarily going to be anti-Israel framing. The framing
America
you're going to
first.
see. You're going to see isolationism, right?
Yeah.
Which I describe myself as hardcore non-interventionist and kind of mostly an isolationist. I'm for tariffs. I'm for restricted trade, which is a whole different topic. I'm not like a free trade absolutist or anything like that.
Yeah.
So people always get all righteous with me when I say I'm an isolationist. They're like, no, you want trade. I'm like, something a little bit. So yeah, you're going to see a rise in that big time. And we've got leaders. And what I thought has been interesting is to watch the repositioning of people, right? So people that are really coming out at the forefront right now, you've got lawmaker-wise, Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene, which Thomas Massie and Donald Trump do not get along.
No, especially seeing Trump's recent Truth Social. Do you think he's actually going to be able to primary him?
No.
You don't think so? You feel like his base is really...
It's a giant grift for Chris LaCivita, who is running the PAC that Trump just started. It's a waste of money. They're going to fleece a lot of people running on stuff like that. They're going to get a lot of money from a lot of Jewish donors who hate Thomas Massie and think he's an anti-Semite and, whatever. But no, they're not going to win. But I actually think a lot of that is really you're going to see a step up and attack more on Massie because they want to stop him from running for Mitch McConnell's Senate seat. That's really what they're trying to prevent right now.
Do you think they'll be successful?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to run for McConnell's Senate seat.
Yeah.
He's, it's interesting. A lot of southern states, a lot of Republican conservative states, they can talk about fiscal responsibility all they want to, but those, people like Mitch McConnell, the reason that he's in office is because he brings it home. He brings the bacon home for his state, and Thomas Massie's politics are very niche. They're a lot like Ron Paul's in a lot of ways. I actually disagree with him significantly on a lot of stuff because it's very libertarian leaning, and I'm not a libertarian at all. So I understand Trump's frustration with him sometimes, but there are others who are just as stubborn, even more destructive than Massie, way more destructive than Massie. And of course, they don't draw any of the ire. So you have to come to the conclusion that what is really driving this. And of course, it's Massie's unapologetic stance against the Israel lobby. Not even just like Israel, because he's not per se, like anti-Israel per se. It's not like he doesn't support any foreign funding whatsoever. He votes against all of the Ukraine, all of Taiwan, all of that crap. He doesn't single Israel out in any ways, but he has been very brave, in my opinion, in calling out the Israeli lobby, AIPAC, and really it's the Jewish lobby in the U.S. So it's not just, Israel lobby kind of, or AIPAC definitely kind of whitewashes a lot of stuff. There's a very, very powerful Jewish lobby in the U.S., and there's nothing to compare it to as far as like terms of, Christian. There is no Christian lobby. There's like two Muslim PACs, right? You've got like CAIR, and I think there's like one other.
Yeah.
Organizing around a demographic, a religion, anything like that. There's just nothing that compares to the Jewish lobby. I mean, you have to give them respect and props for that because they're very effective. So
Yeah, they
the
work really
network
hard.
is, yeah. I mean, it's impressive. It should be emulated. But we shouldn't be afraid to call it out. I don't think.
No, I
So,
agree, and it's so much more than just just political fundraising. The influence in the media that they have to disparage and just to attack after attack, like just headline after headline after headline. It's a very concerted environment that they've built. And I don't know how
yeah.
that you can even change that. Do you feel like that's going to change over time? People always talk about, oh, like especially recently registering APAC through FARA. I can't even ever see that happening when the majority of the politicians in there are bought out. So how it's not like they're going to vote against themselves.
Right. Well, so I don't necessarily think that foreign registration is the answer. I don't actually think it would change a whole lot because of the way that APAC is
American
organized,
case.
right?
Yeah.
So it's not even just that; it's that APAC itself, right? So they have the American Israeli Political Action Committee, right? Then they actually have a separate fundraising pack, right? So even if you made APAC register, the chances that you could get their affiliated pack to register, I don't think they would just split it off and it would just be totally separate from them. I'm sure it probably is separate already, to be quite honest with you. And foreigners already can't donate to, if you don't hold U.S. citizenship, you cannot donate directly to a candidate. You cannot spend money in our political system like that. So all of these people, Marian Allison, yeah, she lives in Israel. She lives in Tel Aviv. I believe she still lives in the old U.S. embassy in Tel Aviv. Her
I
and
didn't know
Sheldon.
that.
Yeah, they bought it. They bought it after Trump
What?
moved the embassy to Jerusalem to ensure that whoever came in after him could never move it back.
Oh my gosh, those psychos! I had no idea.
Yes, she lives there. I don't think she has ever lived in the U.S., even though of course she has residences here in Vegas and whatnot. But because she has citizenship, she can participate in our elections, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Right?
Yeah. Was she born in the U.S.?
Nope. She was born in Tel Aviv. No,
That's so crazy.
It's her citizenship is purely through her marriage to Sheldon Adelson.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And the amount of influence she has, $100 million to Trump's campaign. That was like the worst money. Oh, I wish she just like got that through like individual donors. Like
Well, I
smart.
mean, so she actually didn't even give the money straight to Trump. A lot of people don't understand this, that we have more power than what people realize, because the thing is, she didn't give that money to him. She ran ads, right? If Americans were not so easily influenced by television ads, and there are certain indicators saying that we are less influenceable by them, I actually think that her money did not make as big of a difference as people try to make it out to be. I tracked her money very, like, where they were spending it, because what happens is she puts $100 million into this pack that she herself runs. Nobody else runs it. Actually, she is known for being quite militant in the way that she spends the money, or she doesn't just like hand it over to someone else and then they get to spend it wherever they want to. She is like hands on in the campaign, or in with the super PAC. So super PACs aren't allowed to donate directly to candidates. What they're allowed to do is they can spend an unlimited amount on what's called independent expenditures, which are your commercials, basically, or their mailings, any kind of like electioneering communications straight to the voter, right? And they're not allowed to coordinate with the candidate, and but she directed it specifically to the markets of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, right? 3 swing states. It makes sense. Most of it was spent in Pennsylvania. The problem is, or I don't say the problem, the thing is that there were a lot of things going into, if you actually watched what she ran it on, she didn't, the commercials that they were running, they almost none of them had anything to do with Israel at all. They ran pretty effective commercials as far as like inflation prices, school choice, things that people care about, right? So I don't know. And then of course everybody now, inflation has come down a little bit. If the war kicks off, obviously it'll go back up again. But
Yeah.
if Americans would stop being so easily influenced by commercials, we could actually take a lot of control back. But unfortunately, it is what it is now. You run enough negative campaigns or negative campaign commercials. I mean, you know, it used to be a 20-point swing. Now it's like a 10-point swing still that you can produce from a $10 million campaign.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's crazy. How much of Tucker Carlson, he made a lengthy post at one point on and he was saying that one of the neocons that's whispering in Trump's ear is Mary Mandelson. How much of a influence do you think that her $100 million had, not on the actual elections, but now on the influence she has on Trump?
I don't know. I think that most of it actually probably comes a lot from Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, and then of course his daughter, and then his 3 grandkids being half Jewish and whatnot. I don't think that Trump like buys into the whole God gave the land to Jews thing.
I don't think he does either. I feel like he's just he kind of does whatever. He kind of follows the power a bit.
Yeah, I think, and he gets a lot of flattery from those certain circles and whatnot. That's why I try to, when I'm like criticizing him, even though I did crash out pretty hard after he bombed Iran. I was pretty ugly. I actually went back and deleted a couple tweets because I was pretty vile to him. But when I'm criticizing, I try to appeal to his ego more than anything.
Yeah, that's what it works too.
It does. It does work. He is more susceptible to online campaigns than probably any politician in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And people, a lot of black pillars will always say, well, you can't, he's not going to see it, or he doesn't care, the decision's already made. I'm personally of the opinion, like, I think what happened in Iran, I actually think something happened. I don't believe that it was supposed to end with just the bombing campaigns. I don't buy the idea that you move in 3 aircraft carriers, you move tens of thousands of troops into the region. They were still on the outskirts, but they were like in the region, ready to go, just so that you can fly 6 B-2s straight from Missouri and then straight home, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of movement for and a lot of money spent to get all of that positioning in place, and then just for you to, and we know those bombs didn't work. They knew before they dropped them that they weren't going to work.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
And they were hoping that there more would come afterward.
I think they had a plan. I mean, because my question was always like, how are you going to make sure you destroyed the facilities? It's not going to let you in. They're not going to admit that they were destroyed. You're going to have to send people in. And if you read the leaked Israeli reports, it always was a 2-step. A bombing campaign followed by commandos going in and ensuring destruction, right?
Oh, I didn't see that actually.
Yeah, there was a New York Times leak in February and another one in April, both of them detailing that out. And it was always 2 parts.
And they wanted the Americans to be the ones with boots on the ground.
So initially it was suggested it would be Israeli, and then that was February's leak, and then April's leak incorporated U.S. Special Forces and Israeli Special Forces, which is interesting because they don't train together. So I always kind of thought that was BS. Like, no, it was going to be our guys going in. And so I feel like Trump only gave them half of what they wanted, and I think that's why I think that leak from the New York Times, I do believe that was a Zionist who leaked that. I don't think it was, a lot of people think it was some kind of like peacenik trying to say like, look how pointless the bombing was. I think
Why do you
that
think
it
a
was
Zionist would have benefited?
well, would have leaked the thing, the story yesterday saying that the facilities weren't destroyed because they want us to go back in there. They
Hmm.
want us to bomb. They want to open the war back up.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you saw, but Shmuley last night, Rabbi Shmuley said, "This is proof we need to go back and bomb again."
No, I didn't see that yet.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
god.
you know, you can laugh at that all you want to, but Rabbi Shmuley somehow knows every single
How?
powerful person in the world somehow.
That's so unsettling. That's so unsettling. Like seeing the photos he takes with all these powerful people, and he helps sell
Yeah.
butt plugs with his daughter. Something. It's just like
Yeah.
it's disgusting. It just I don't
It's
understand it.
weird. And he's so just really unsightly looking, you know. He's just a really unfortunate looking man in general. And I try not to be too mean
No,
or
it
superficial
just
like
yeah.
that, but you know, it's like ugh. But he's just, and obviously I think a lot of that is also because he's got such a terrible, awful personality, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, how does this guy was like super close with Michael Jackson?
I was just literally just about to say that, but he ended up
Yeah.
having a huge falling out with him.
Right. But it's like, how do you have so much influence that you know all of these movie stars and then, you know, artists, musicians, things like that, but then also you can go to the NATO summit and shake hands and, you know, pal around with like all of the presidents of all these EU countries. It's weird. I don't get it. It's kind of like the epitome of that George Carlton joke. You know, it's one big club and you ain't in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it makes me wonder, you know, and then the conspiracy theorist in me starts to think, is blackmail affiliate, like, does that play a role? What's going on here? It's
right.
yeah.
I think there's like this. Is he part of the Chabad Lubavitch sect of Judaism?
I'm
I
not
know that that's like super powerful.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wonder what, like, it's funny, Nick Fuentes, he made I don't know when he made the video, but I saw the video yesterday and he was talking about Laura Loomer. And he said that Laura Loomer is just so power hungry and she'll do anything for $1. And she just is so focused on power. And I think that Rabbi Shmuley is very similar, where he's just so power hungry that he'll just kind of work
Yeah.
his way up. But I don't know what, I'm not sure what the sect is. Why did you mention that?
Because that actual sect, because I always think that it's dangerous to kind of, I think that there are power structures within the Jewish community. Obviously, it's like the same with Catholicism, right? And it's hard for somebody like me. Like I grew up evangelical, and there's, you know, where most evangelicals are poor, and there's really no like divine power structure and whatnot. I mean, you've got like the head of the Southern Baptist Church, I guess, is probably the most organized among the evangelicals, but even then, like they don't wield any like real power. So it's fascinating to me to like see the way that, I mean, the Catholic Church is also extremely powerful, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the only thing really to combat that would be the Chabad Lidovich. I always say these things wrong. And that is a sect out of New York City. I guess they like study the Talmud. I don't understand everything that goes into it, but I do know that anytime somebody wants to run for major political office, they have to go meet with him.
Oh.
Like Trump. Yeah, Trump. I don't know if you remember. So their headquarters are in Brooklyn, New York City, and Trump went there to. I guess they had a rabbi. It's like a rebbe is one of their divine scholars. Again, these people, like, they study the Talmud all day long. I think that's the only thing that they do, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, they're very okay. I didn't really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost like monk-like, right? And then, so yeah, one of the rebbe, which is like the head rabbi, I guess, and I know people are gonna be like, I know I'm not saying this right, but it's along those lines. He's like the top scholar. He's buried at this place, and then Trump. So people from all over the world, Jews from all over the world, come.
I think the Argentina Javier Milei, or however you pronounce his name, the president of Argentina, was there within the past year.
Yeah, no, people from, I mean, like, all of the powerful people come to visit their Rebe's grave. And then there's like this tradition where they like rip up paper or something, and I think there's a fire. I don't know if they burn it. I don't understand at all. I don't get really that obsessed with it. But just the fact that like you've got presidents and congressmen and world leaders coming, that indicates, obviously, that kind of shows you that they are powerful, right? So if Shmuley was associated with them, that would make more sense, like how he knows all of these people, right? Because they do wield a significant amount of power, and of course, New York City being the financial capital of the world, so which would also, just put you in proximity to powerful people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're trying to explain away Shmuley, like how somebody just so grotesque could have any kind of
have so much influence, and it just it's wild. And then we've been chatting for 42 minutes, but I want to kind of finish off and say, well, one, do you think this power dynamic that's been playing out for decades now is going to change? Do you think things are going to continue the way they are, outside of just the influence of the Israel lobby in general? But the current power structure we have, where there's a lot of I guess you said the Jewish lobby, a lot of influence there, this dynamic that you almost have to kiss that Western Wall in order to how do you feel like things are going to play out over the next 5 to 10 years?
I don't know. I think right now that everybody is kind of just over the whole accusing people of anti-Semitism, right? It doesn't really work anymore. Where nobody hates Jews because they're Jews. Like, nobody does
Absolutely,
that. Nobody gives a what your religion is. They
Agreed.
just don't, right? People oppose Israel for a wide variety of reasons. Like, you can, and I always try to make this claim, you don't even if you don't care about Palestinians whatsoever, right? Even if you actually think that, think really bad things about Palestinians, you can still, and you should still, oppose Israel because it's a welfare state that takes billions of dollars, that exploits our political system, that buys our elections, that they run blackmail schemes against our politicians. They even if like the plight of the Palestinian people doesn't tug at your heart at all, you can oppose it on totally other grounds. I personally, first and foremost, oppose it on just humanitarian grounds because it's awful what is done to these people. It makes me sick that my tax dollars go towards funding the oppression and just wholesale slaughter of an entire group of people simply because other people want their land, right? I mean, it's I'm sure some Jews hate Muslims, but I think it's more so it's just they want the land and they don't care, and so they'll say anything they have to get it, and to maintain support and whatnot. So so there's a lot of different ways that you can approach protesting the U.S.'s relationship with Israel, and I would like to see on the right kind of an exploration of that, because I think the left really has already locked in the whole, I know it's going to sound bad, but the whole kind of tug at the heartstrings, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so
it's not really appealing to the right. That's not how you appeal to the right.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, and to a certain extent, in the right's defense, like there's a lot of bad stuff that happens all over the world that we have no control over, right? Like,
yeah.
I would never support like sending troops into. I mean, you've got some slaughters going on in the Congo or in Nigeria and whatnot. Again, I think that that's really awful, and I pray for those people. But what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't. Yeah. We only have capacity as humans for so much, right? Empathy. So I can sympathize, but of course the argument is that we're not funding the Congo slaughters. We're not funding the bad things happening in Nigeria or in Burma or whatnot. But we are directly funding. We subsidize everything that Israel does. We back their debt. We give them full diplomatic cover. We sanction anyone who tries to hold them even just a tiny bit accountable for any of the terrible things that they do, right? So yeah, there is an argument, but again, this comes at tremendous cost to the US's reputation, to our fiscal
That's
to
what worries
our
me a lot,
checkbook.
especially with inflation.
Yeah,
How much we fund this.
we fund them. If you're right leaning, I always try to show people or to tell people you have no idea how often support for Israel is leveraged against Republicans. To Democrats will say, we won't go along with your funding for Israel if you don't do this for us, right? So all the time, that happens all the time. And that's something, Thomas Massey has talked about that, but also Marjorie Taylor Greene has talked about that. And she's kind of like one of the up and coming people. I think you're going to see a lot of like alignment behind her. And it's become pretty obvious that she wants to lead this new formation on the right. She wants to.
Yeah, the America First, truly America First, isolationists, and foreign wars.
And I think she's more anti-Israel than most. Probably a lot of people don't know this, but when she came into office, she got raked over the coals pretty hard by the Israeli lobby. They really did not like her. Yeah. They hate America First. They hate it. But there were some wildfires. I don't know if you recall this. She got elected, I believe, in 2020. There were some wildfires, I think, or it was either 2019 or 2021. It was right after she came into office, and she actually brought up the idea of direct energy weaponry, which is lasers, right? So.
Oh yeah, I remember this whole space laser thing. Some people started talking about Jewish space lasers. I didn't really look too much into it. I didn't know what was all that about.
So she said she was talking about direct energy weapons, and I forget the exact wording, but she didn't say anything about Jewish space lasers. But I do think that she said that Israel has this technology, and they do. Like, we know they do. And so that's where the whole Jewish space lasers thing came from. And they were so hard on her, and it was, it really, to this day, you go in her mention, somebody's bringing up Jewish space lasers.
Yeah, they are.
So I think she's got a little bit of an axe to grind over that, and I don't blame her. And so this week she really came out hard, and she was one of the only people I saw saying, pray for the innocent people in Iran.
Yeah.
No war. But she did something that I think was so brave. I really do think, and I know you gotta go, but
no, I want to talk about this. I know what yeah, go ahead.
Is that she acknowledged not just acknowledged, from her official account, she said Israel has nuclear weapons.
Yep.
And I think she did some Bible verses. It's kind of a little bit. No, so that's the other one. So she actually did this.
Is this a different post you're referring to?
Yeah. There was. So she did this one where she accuses
John F. Kennedy of being implicated with the nuclear weapons program. Okay, I didn't realize there was another one that she said as well.
Oh yeah. Let me pull her up real quick.
Was it recently as well, around this time?
It was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, on the people of Israel, if Netanyahu had not dropped bombs on the people of Iran first, Israel is a nuclear armed nation. This is not our fight. Peace is the answer. Wow.
Right.
17.7 million views as well.
Yeah, and actually, this thing's actually not even the one I was thinking of, but her flat out saying Israel is a nuclear armed nation. There is like an unspoken rule.
Yeah.
In Washington that is strictly adhered to, where you do not acknowledge Israel's nuclear weapons. And if you do, there will be consequences, right? And many ex-representatives have talked about this, former employees of national intelligence. They've talked about how anytime they would bring it up, they would get in trouble. We had high-ranking like generals who, of course, after retiring would say that they would just casually even mention. And one of them, I forget who it was a guy who worked at the Pentagon. He said he was pulled into an office and said, if you bring up Israel's nukes again, you will be fired, So,
Wow. And
that's,
yeah.
so that's actually not even the one I was thinking of. There was another one. She said, Israel has nuclear weapons. They can fight their own wars with their nukes or something like that. I forget what it was. And I tweeted it out and I said, does anyone know of any other sitting member of Congress who has ever acknowledged Israel's nuclear weapons? Because again, they'll talk about it when they leave office, but they will not talk about it when they're sitting in office. So that was super brave to me. I thought, like, wow, not even Rashida Tlaib doesn't even talk like this.
No, and oh dang, I didn't realize she's been saying a lot. The United States should not be involved in fighting nuclear-armed Israel. She very specifically mentioned nuclear-armed Israel.
Yes.
Like, she made a point to write that.
Yep.
That is pretty crazy. And then let's see, developing the same story. It's that's crazy. And then this one, the JFK one too. I didn't even realize this bottom part. There was once a great president that the American people loved. He opposed Israel's nuclear program. Then he was assassinated. I'm for peace. I oppose wars, including wars Israel wages. Should I feel that my life is in danger now too? What about President Trump, who strongly rebuked Israel this morning for continuing to attack Iran? This is crazy. I'm really starting to like her. I'm really starting to like her because, I don't agree with everything. I feel like she is a little bit delulu, but I like that she is true to herself.
Oh yeah. I mean, she is definitely America first. You cannot deny that. You might disagree with a lot of her policies, maybe some of the rhetoric, and the way she goes about it, but I do think her heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
She absolutely hates the squad on the left, and I get it because I think they're super annoying too. People like the AOC and the one I actually do like is Ilhan Omar. She doesn't bother me. A lot of her rhetoric is a little bit inflammatory, but she and Matt Gaetz used to work together a lot on.
Wait, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they would work together on legislation to combat monopolies, right? We have like a serious monopoly problem with business in this country. And I think there was like 2 different bills that they co-authored together. And I remember seeing an interview with Gaetz once where he said that she was a little annoying, but he actually liked her because she was willing to work with him on certain things. So, and I've seen some of the things that she posts, some of her rhetoric is good. I think it's really good. But then of course, to me, she's like, she gets really into like the whole DEI stuff. I think she was a little bit on like the defund the police stuff. And,
very big on talking about white supremacy a lot, which kind of just like, I'm just not whatever. I feel like there's much more important issues.
The demand for white supremacy far outpaces the supply, right?
Yeah,
it's just
I agree. And if
I
think Jewish supremacy needs to be more of a topic. I think that's really the biggest issue right now. Crazy. I also Matt Gaetz. I'm really starting to like the guy a lot. I actually liked him more after seeing the leaked text messages with his mom. For some reason, that made me respect him even more. Did you see those?
I did, and I thought it was fake at first, and then I went and looked at the page of the chick who recorded it, and she's like this crazy lefty.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't, I mean, he was clearly just going back, like reading through what he had talked with his mom. Maybe he had felt bothered, or I was like wondering, like, did he say something rude? And then his dad was like, what the hell did you say to your mom? You know, kind of thing. I was like, why was he looking at it for so long? But for whatever reason, no, I think, I don't know if you read, I did a really long thread on Matt Gaetz last November after his attorney general nomination got pulled. And so it's funny because it's this like weird, I don't want to say like connection, because obviously I don't know the guy and I don't have any connection, and we don't even like follow each other on Twitter or anything, but I brought the real story about what really happened to him and how he was pretty much sabotaged. His political career was sabotaged by a coordinated effort. Initially, it was just this like,
Was it by the Israel lobby?
yes and no. It was initially done by this guy, Joel Greenberg. He's like a Jewish guy out of, he was an associate of Gates, who got in trouble with underage girls. And then as a way to try to leverage or to lesser his sentence, he kind of threw Matt Gaetz under the bus and said that Gaetz had been, that he had sexual relations with an underage girl. Well, come to find out, that Joel Greenberg guy had actually, he was the county tax collector in Florida. And in Florida, county tax collectors are also in charge of state IDs. So what happened was Greenberg had met this young girl who presented herself as of age on a sugar daddy website. He finds out that she's not of age, that she's still 17. He then steals someone's identity who had come in to get an ID at the tax collector's office. He uses this girl's picture, puts it on the fake ID of this woman who is now of age, and now this girl's running around presenting herself as, 22 or 23. I don't know how they said that she was, but apparently Gaetz had he has always said, I did not have sex with an underage woman. And depending on how you look at it, if she's presenting herself, she's stolen an identity, he didn't have sex with an underage woman. Like, it's one
So he
thing
had no
to say,
idea it was a.
he had, yeah, but it was even more so, like, because people will say, well, that's not a defense to say that he didn't know, he should have known. But it's different when someone is actually stealing someone else's identity, right? It's more than just she lied and said she was of age and she wasn't. It was that she was actually engaging in a felony herself. And ergo, that's why the FBI wouldn't touch it. But what happened was Greenberg, whose family is very powerful, very, very wealthy, somehow it gets leaked to the Israeli lobby, the Israeli consulate, which Matt Gaetz' father is extremely wealthy. He owns, or he sold, he started a bunch of old folks' homes, and then he sold them. I think he's a billionaire. The Israeli consulate, someone at the Israeli consulate got a hold of this information, heard the FBI was investigating. In 2021, they tried to extort Matt Gaetz' father for $25 million to fund this search and rescue mission for this Jewish guy who had been taken captive in Iran. Like 15 years ago, a guy named Bob something, I forget. There's a lot of Bobs in this. There was like 3 Bobs in the story. But this guy was taken captive. There's a little island off of Iran. I don't know if you are familiar with the geography there. Kish Island, I think it is. Okay. He was sent there as doing some freelance work for the CIA. I think that he was actually doing some Mossad work as well. Iranians get hold of it, and they he disappears. And this was in 2007 when Bush was still president. CIA didn't want to admit, they didn't want to acknowledge Bob, I can't. I'm sorry, it's gonna drive me crazy if I can't think of or if I can't find his name. I can tell you here if you don't mind.
No, go for it. And when did the Matt Gates
Yeah.
stuff was this prior to this?
Oh yeah, so this all. Did you not know anything about his
The whole section.
arrest? The sex thing.
No, I did know about that. I'm trying to remember the time between that and this is father's situation that you're referring to.
Yeah, so that happened. Let's see. David McGee. Excuse me. So it wasn't a Bob at that time. Hold on. No, actually, I take that back. I'm sorry. You would think Bob Levinson. So he was a Bob. I knew I was right. Bob Levinson was kidnapped in Iran in 2007. He was a retired FBI agent, and he was working off the books for the CIA. And yes, he was kidnapped from Kish Island following a meeting with an American fugitive living in Iran that had been arranged by a former NBC producer named Ira Silverman. Yeah, so there's still some question about why he was even meeting with this American fugitive, and that's where they think that Mossad. That's where I think Mossad comes in at. Anyways, yeah, so he gets kidnapped. There was one failed rescue attempt already that had been funded by a Russian oligarch in 2010 in exchange for a bunch of green cards for the oligarch's family, and he had funded it to the tune of $20 million. And then Gates, or Bob Levinson, was declared legally dead. A bunch of stuff happens in between there, but he's declared legally dead in 2020. And then like 2 months after that, his there's a new proof of life that someone claims, and that's a guy named Bob Kent, claims that he has new information saying that Bob Levinson is still alive, and they need $25 million to conduct this new rescue mission. So they're trying to find funding for it, right? The government's not having it. They're like, no, he's already dead. We declared him dead, yada, yada, yada. So somebody at the Israeli consulate gets a hold and says, well, I know where you can get some money. So they contact Matt Gates' dad, and and they say, hey, if you give us $25 million, we'll secure a presidential pardon from Joe Biden for your son, who's under investigation for these sexual harassment or these the statutory rape charges.
Oh wow!
And Gates' dad was like, no, I'm not giving you any money. He contacts Matt Gates. He's like, hey, you need to call the FBI. They call the FBI. The FBI turns out is like not in on it, but they know what's going on. And it's a little bit of a story. If anybody's interested, you can go to my X page. You can read. It's a full story that I have on my highlights. But it ended up getting total altogether like 40 million views. Like the topic got shared on all of the big alternative accounts. There was like I think it even got shared on Drudge Report, but the Citizens Free Press. There were so many people, like so many things. So it's so funny. I had so many people contact me asking me like who fed you all of that stuff, and I actually just found it all on my own. I just pieced it together over about a week, and I was fascinated. It's a great story. It's a wild story. It would make a great movie. But
that is crazy. I want to share my screen on so people know where to look for it in your highlights and find it. That's crazy. And the thing is, this is kind of what they do, how they extort people, blackmail people. This is like one of many, many, many stories that we probably haven't heard of either.
Yep. Yeah. So what happened, how we know about the Israeli consulate is that, so the Gates thing, the meeting, so the FBI has Gates' father set up a meeting with the extortionists, right? But then the Gates were actually smart enough to demand an acknowledgement letter from the FBI saying, I am wearing a wire. I may say things that, to try to get some more information that might incriminate my son or sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I'm in full cooperation with the FBI. Basically saying, like, nothing I'm saying is true, right? Essentially.
Yeah.
So the FBI is really reluctant to do this, but they eventually agree to it. And what happens is that the very next day after Gates' dad wore the wire into the meeting with the extortionist guys, the story breaks at the New York Times, and that he's under investigation for sex with underage girls. So I was interested in this story because that night Matt Gaetz goes on air with Tucker Carlson, and I used to be like this religious watcher of Tucker Carlson every night, and I remember like sitting there watching it, and it was so bizarre. It was such a bizarre scene because he starts rambling on about this extortion scheme and underage girls, and he sounds crazy, like he sounded insane. And yet now, like when I came across everything, I realized everything he said was true. He was 100% right. He was telling the truth. He really was being extorted. He really didn't do these things that they said that he did. And what happened was Scott Adams, do you know who he is? He's like the Dilbert guy.
Oh, who did you mention? Who was it? I didn't hear you.
Scott Adams.
Oh, yeah.
So oddly enough, Scott Adams comes into this story because he posts on his X account these text messages that he received from a guy named Jacob Novak, who was an employee he was like the media director for the Israeli consulate. And he's like telling him, he's telling Scott Adams, I got the inside track. Gates is a sexual predator or something, and he's going to get arrested. And and he says something to the effect of, we tried to help him and he didn't want to take our help for something. I forget what it was.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like, it's like, who is we? Now, something interesting about that is that Jacob Novak is now the president of Batar USA.
Oh my God.
Which is the psycho group that runs around handing people pagers to.
Yeah, I feel like they're basically just like Israeli sleeper cells.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
They're so radical. It's wild. This is crazy. It's like Andrew Tate, out of all people, a couple like last year and a half ago, he made a video saying this is kind of how this international syndicate works, is that they'll try to give you a lot of money and they'll tell you, hey, take this money, but you have to do X, Y, and Z, and you have to sign this contract. And if you don't sign this contract, then we're going to do attack headline after attack headline, and we're going to end up putting you in jail. And most people are like, okay, let's accept all of this money, and then you become their puppet. Or you don't accept that money, and then they just do everything they can to just put you in jail or just like destroy your life.
Right, yeah, and people like Andrew Tate are
and that's what I think happened to Michael Jackson, honestly.
Oh, definitely. His case, it's unfortunate because you have somebody like Andrew Tate, who clearly not my cup of tea, but there is a charisma that people are drawn to him for whatever reason, variety of reasons. And he's a controversial figure, right? He's not an angel by any means. He has a lot of skeletons in his closet. So they see him as an easy mark, right? Because why not? In fact, they love people like him because then they really can control him, especially because he's just got so much vile stuff in his repertoire or whatever. I don't know, in his history, stuff that people are just really, really turned off by. I've had women literally demand that I denounce him. I'm like, I don't even know anything about this dude. I think he's weird. I don't like the way he talks to people. I don't like his like overemphasis on, money and cars and things like that. He made like a tweet one day like calling, men who apparently, I don't know, own one vehicle and work and come home to their wives losers. Like, what the
Yeah, meanwhile, I'm
People
pretty
like
sure the
that.
guy's like not even married, and yeah.
No, yeah. So
Um,
he was like talking about all his Lamborghinis. I'm like, who cares? I don't know. Stuff like that is like a big turn off to me. So
yeah,
it's just
definitely.
gross. But so somebody like him, Michael Jackson, is a really unfortunate, troubled person, or he was, and so again, he would also be, I think, ripe for.
I'm gonna make a video on him soon. His relationship with Rabbi Shmuley, I think, is so interesting.
Yeah,
And then
it
towards the
is.
end, yeah,
His and yeah, his case, like when you really start looking at the cases and whatnot, and the evidence and everything. I worked for a criminal defense attorney for a few years, and a lot of cases, when you really get down into the nitty gritty, into the actual evidence, so much of it is smoke and mirrors, right?
hmm
And it's kind of incredible. Not all of it. Usually, I mean, the cops don't just nab people off the street for nothing, but usually things are way different. They played out way differently than what is presented to the public. So it's wild how good they are at convincing us of guilt and innocence via um, mass media. So
agreed,
yeah.
agreed. Mel, thanks so much for chatting today. This was so much
Yes.
fun, genuinely. Where can people find you and see more of your content?
Yep, you can follow me on X. That's pretty much the only place that I post. I have a Substack, but I don't ever really post on there.
And here's
I try to share
Mel's
my articles.
profile so you guys can find her, Village Crazy Lady on X without the A.
Yep, and I have
Uh,
a podcast with Janine Yunez. You can find us. It's on YouTube, Rumble, but I also post all those episodes onto X as well. So I know we need to have you on, Wally, to our show.
yeah, I'd love that. Let's
Talk
do it.
about your experience on TikTok, because
Yeah.
you have a big following there, don't you?
Yeah, I do. It's that's where
Yeah.
my main following is, but just recently started my YouTube and everything else, but that's kind of where
Okay.
everything really took off for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. So I wish I could get comfortable talking just by myself on the camera, and I can't. I've tried it so many times.
This
Yeah.
format is different for me. I'm starting to enjoy this conversational format, but it seems like this is what you really enjoy the most.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I just love talking back and forth, but actually talking, I think to myself, I get weird, and I don't know what to say. It's there's a lot of stuttering, and yeah.
I get it.
So
Okay, great. Well, guys, yeah, so make sure to give Mel a follow. I'm excited to
yeah.
share this video, and Mel, I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye.